Mike's birthday party was the kind of suburban get-together that felt like a break from reality. The grill sizzled in the background, the yard smelled of burnt charcoal and overcooked ribs, and lawn chairs were scattered in a half-circle around a fire pit that hadn't been lit yet. It was that part of the evening where the alcohol had kicked in just enough to make everyone a little louder, a little funnier, a little looser. I was standing with a group of guys, Mike, Derek, and Rob, mostly co-workers or husbands of Emma's friends. Someone had handed me a craft beer I couldn't pronounce, and we were swapping the usual husband banter, jobs, fantasy football, whose kid peed in the pool this time. Then someone turned to me, I think it was Derek, and asked with a teasing grin, "So, man, how's married life treating you?" I shrugged, smirked, and without thinking too much, I tossed it out there. "Yeah, she's like Wi-Fi. Great connection with others, but at home, it's always overload or no signal." The line hit like a punchline at a comedy roast. Laughter erupted. Derek actually doubled over, Rob clapped me on the shoulder, and someone from the other side of the yard shouted, "Damn!" It was stupid, a throwaway joke, but it made me feel sharp, seen, like I had some grip on the mess that my marriage was quietly becoming. But the moment I glanced across the yard and caught Emma's face, the buzz of male approval vanished like mist. She was maybe 10 feet away, holding a half-full glass of Chardonnay, standing with two of her friends by the garden lights. Her expression hadn't shifted much, not enough to make a scene. But I know her. I know that tiny arch of her brow when she's irritated. That small, sharp squint in her eyes that says, "Noted, you've crossed a line." She locked eyes with me for just a second. No smile, no warmth. Then, like a flick of a switch, she turned to her friend and laughed at something. Louder than usual, fake enough to make me wince. I tried to shrug it off. Everyone else had moved on to talking about their new smart home setups or their wives' Amazon addiction. But I kept glancing over at her, wondering if maybe I'd gone too far. We didn't talk about it at the party, didn't fight, didn't argue. But the ride home was a tomb. Emma sat with her body turned slightly toward the window, her hand under her chin, watching the empty streets roll by. The only sound was the faint hum of tires on pavement and the turn signal clicking uselessly at an empty intersection. Then she said it. "You really think I'm like Wi-Fi?" Her voice was flat. No sarcasm, no humor, just a quiet little knife in the dark. I exhaled slowly, gripping the wheel. "It was just a joke, Em. We were all messing around." "Right, just a joke." She didn't look at me, didn't blink. The rest of the ride home? Dead silence. And me, wondering why something so small suddenly felt like a warning shot. The thing about marriage is, you don't always notice when the distance starts to grow. It's not like a dramatic explosion, more like a slow fade. A dimming of the lights you didn't realize were even on. After that night, things between Emma and me felt off. Not in a way you could point to with certainty, but in that gut-level, stomach-churning way where something inside you just knows. Something's shifting. She didn't bring up the Wi-Fi joke again, not once. But her silence about it said more than any screaming match could have. It lingered like a low-level static in the background of every conversation. The week after the party, she started coming home later than usual. "Work ran long," she said once, walking in past 8:30 with damp hair and a takeout bag. Another night. "Team dinner? Last minute? Couldn't text? Bad signal in the restaurant?" I wanted to believe her. I chose to believe her. But deep down, that stupid joke I made kept echoing in my head. Great connection with others. At home? Overload or no signal. At home, she wasn't there. Not really. She used to sit with me while I watched TV, throwing sarcastic comments about whatever show was on. Now she disappeared into the bedroom early, headphones in, screen glowing, scrolling endlessly on her phone. She used to kiss me goodbye in the mornings, sometimes even make a little breakfast if she had time. Now it was just the sound of the front door closing. No bye, no love you, just silence. I tried not to be paranoid. I told myself I was being oversensitive. We were both tired, we were both busy. Life happens. But one night, I reached over to her in bed, not for anything serious, just to pull her close, and she stiffened, like my touch startled her. She muttered, "I'm just not in the mood, babe. I'm exhausted." I lay back and stared at the ceiling, blinking into the dark. I didn't say anything, didn't argue. I just felt disconnected, not rejected, unplugged. A few nights later, I brought up the idea of us taking a weekend trip. "Just the two of us," I said. "Maybe a cabin? Phones off? Firewood and wine?" She didn't even look up from her laptop. "That sounds nice," she said. "But this quarter's brutal at work. Maybe in a month or two?" I smiled and nodded, but inside, it felt like I was watching our marriage buffer. Endlessly. Like I was waiting for a signal that never came. It wasn't one big thing that made me suspicious. It was the accumulation, the pattern. The way her phone always seemed to be face down lately. The new 6-digit passcode she'd never used before. The little chuckle she gave once while reading a text, then locked the screen a second too quickly. I wanted to trust her. God, I tried. But at some point, trust starts to feel like denial with good branding. One Wednesday night, I came home early. The office Wi-Fi had gone down, ironically, and we were told to finish the day from home. I walked through the door around 4 p.m., expecting to surprise her. Maybe cook dinner together like we used to. But she wasn't there. No text, no note, no explanation. I called her, straight to voicemail. Okay, maybe she was still in meetings. 30 minutes later, I found myself standing in the kitchen, staring at her iPad on the counter. The same iPad she used to let me borrow all the time. I opened it. Still no password. Old habits die hard, I guess. I told myself I wasn't looking for anything, just curious. But that lie didn't last long. The first thing I saw was her iMessages, a name I didn't recognize. Nate. Nothing overtly romantic at first glance, but the tone was wrong. Playful. Inside jokes I wasn't a part of. A photo of a dessert she'd ordered at a lunch meeting, with the caption, "Told you I'd try the lava cake." My stomach tightened. Who the hell was Nate? I searched the name in her contacts. No last name, just Nate. The heart was a nice touch. Subtle. The worst part? I scrolled back 2 weeks and saw a message from the night of Mike's party. He made a joke about me being Wi-Fi. I think he's starting to catch on. Catch on. My hands went cold. My vision narrowed. That night. The joke. Her frozen smile. The cold car ride. She wasn't offended. She was nervous. I had been too close to the truth. By accident. I sat down slowly, the iPad still in my hands, as that sick, hot pressure built behind my eyes. This wasn't just emotional distance. This was real. She wasn't mine anymore. She was already somewhere else, mentally, emotionally, maybe even physically. By midnight, she still hadn't come home. No text, no call, no explanation. I checked my phone for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Nothing. I called her again, straight to voicemail. No ringing, no delay. Like the phone was off, or like I was blocked. I stared at the wall in our living room, lights off, TV on mute, my reflection dimly flickering across the black screen. A bowl of untouched pasta sat on the table. I'd cooked it around 8, thinking she'd walk through the door any minute, toss her purse down, kiss me on the cheek and say, "Smells good, babe." But the food was cold, and the house was colder. At first, I was just worried, legitimately. She'd never been this late before without a heads up. What if something happened? A car accident, an emergency. But worry has a shelf life. After an hour of silence, concern started to curdle into suspicion. I remembered the messages on her iPad. He's starting to catch on. The emoji haunted me more than the words. I opened my laptop, breathing slow, steady. I was shaking, but not from fear anymore. It was that quiet, steady adrenaline, like something inside me had flipped from husband mode to investigator mode. I opened the Find My app. Her location blinked to life. Not at the office, not at the gym, not even in the general direction of anywhere she had ever mentioned. Downtown, a condo building I didn't recognize. I stared at it for a full minute before moving. No rage, no yelling, no cinematic moment of smashing something against a wall. Just a decision. I grabbed my keys and left the house. The city was mostly asleep. Midnight lights painted the wet pavement in streaks of yellow and blue. My hands were tight on the steering wheel, knuckles pale. I didn't even realize I'd turned off the radio until I pulled up in front of the building. It was nice. Too nice. Glass facade, clean modern design, card access entry. The kind of place you rent when you're either single or playing house with someone who's not your husband. I parked across the street, engine off, windows slightly lowered. I waited. The clock on the dashboard ticked past 12:45 a.m. And then, there she was. She came out of the lobby like she owned the place. No rush, no nerves. Her hair was up, her coat open, blouse slightly wrinkled. Her face had that warm, slightly flushed glow like someone who'd had wine and laughter and time. She wasn't alone. Next to her walked a man, tall, broad-shouldered, probably early 40s. Sharp jawline, rolled-up sleeves. They moved in sync. He said something that made her laugh. Not polite laughter, but the genuine kind. The kind I hadn't heard from her in months. Then he touched the small of her back, and she didn't pull away. They paused just before the curb. She leaned in and kissed him. Not fast, not guilty. Like it was the 100th time, like it was natural. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just reached for my phone and took a picture. And then another. I didn't zoom in, didn't frame it, didn't think about angles. I just captured it. The truth. Undeniable. Unedited. Mine. They walked away from each other a few minutes later. He went back inside. She pulled out her phone, maybe calling a cab, maybe texting me something generic like, "Sorry, I passed out at Sarah's. Talk tomorrow?" I started the car and drove off before she saw me. The road home was silent. No music, no thoughts, just the sound of tires slicing through the wet street. I felt hollow, like someone had unplugged something vital inside me. And yet, in the middle of all that emptiness, I actually smirked, just for a second. Great connection with others, but at home, overload or no signal. I had made the joke. But now, I was living the punchline. She came home at 2:39 a.m. I was sitting in the kitchen, lights off, sipping cold coffee that had gone bitter an hour ago. I didn't move when the door opened. I didn't speak. The sound of her heels on the hardwood was soft, hesitant. "Hey!" she called out, voice light, like she wasn't sure if I was asleep or angry or both. "You're still up?" I waited a second, then another. Finally, I said quietly, "Yeah." She walked into the kitchen, surprised to find me sitting there in the dark. "Babe, why are you just sitting here?" she asked, flicking on the light. I squinted but didn't look at her fully, just stared at my coffee, swirling the cup slowly. She put her bag on the counter and leaned on one foot like she was about to launch into a story she had rehearsed in the elevator. "I'm sorry I'm late. It's been such a crazy night. Sarah had a whole meltdown about her ex, and I couldn't just leave her like that. My phone died, and I couldn't call you." I raised my hand gently, not angrily, just to stop the noise. "Don't," I said. She froze. "What do you mean, don't?" I finally looked at her, not with fury, not with rage, but with a calm so still it scared even me. "I know you weren't with Sarah." She blinked. "What are you talking about?" I didn't respond. I reached into my hoodie pocket, pulled out my phone, tapped once, and turned the screen toward her. The photo. Her. The man. The kiss. Frozen in time. Too clear to deny. Too close to twist. She stared at it. I watched the blood drain from her face like someone pulled the plug. Her lips parted, but no sound came. "Who is he?" I asked softly. She took a shallow breath, like she couldn't believe she had to deal with this now. "I can explain," she said, voice already cracking. "Good," I replied. Start. It's not what it looks like. I gave a short, humorless laugh. You're going to use that one? After that picture? I didn't mean for it to happen, okay? She said quickly. It just started. I leaned forward, placing my elbows on the table. How long? She hesitated. A few weeks. Emma. She swallowed. 2 months. I nodded slowly. There was a long silence between us. She was fidgeting now, nervously pulling at her sleeves, brushing her hair behind her ear. I just felt disconnected, she whispered, like we weren't close anymore. I nodded again. Calm, ice cold. You mean after I made that joke at the party? I asked. When I said you were like Wi-Fi? Her eyes flickered. She remembered. Yeah, I continued. Great connection with others. But at home? It's always overload or no signal. That one. She tried to say something, but I wasn't finished. You laughed about it with him, I said. I saw the message. He's starting to catch on. Her face dropped. That was the nail. She knew it. No more defense. No more spinning. Were you going to tell me? I asked. No. That one word stung worse than any scream. No, she repeated more softly. I thought I could manage it. I didn't want to hurt you. I stared at her, blinking slowly. You were okay hurting me behind my back, I said, but not to my face. Got it. I'm sorry, she said. It came out almost involuntarily. I stood up. Don't be, I said, voice low. You've been free this whole time. I'm just finally catching up. She looked like she wanted to cry, not because of guilt, but because control was slipping. The lies weren't working anymore. The veil was gone. I walked past her toward the hallway. Where are you going? She asked. To bed, I said. You can sleep on the couch. If you're still here in the morning, we'll talk about logistics, but we're done. She didn't sleep on the couch. At least, not really. I heard her pacing around the living room until after 4 a.m., drawers opening, zippers, a suitcase sliding across the floor. When I came out of the bedroom around 7:30, she was sitting at the kitchen table, fully dressed, hair tied back, a travel bag by her side. The same spot I had sat in just hours before, waiting, hurting, watching everything fall apart. She looked up, startled, like she didn't expect me to come out so soon. I walked to the counter, poured myself a cup of coffee, didn't say a word. After a moment, she cleared her throat. I'm leaving for a few days, she said. I sipped the coffee. It was cold again. Of course. Didn't think you'd stick around for breakfast, I said quietly. She flinched slightly but didn't bite. I think we both need space, she added. Time to think. I nodded, leaned against the counter. No need to think, I said. I already made my decision. She looked up sharply. What does that mean? It means I'll be filing this morning, I said flatly. Divorce. She went pale, then defensive. You don't want to talk? Figure things out like adults? We've been married for 7 years. And for 2 of them, I interrupted, you've been slowly checking out. And for the last 2 months, you've been sleeping with someone else. So, no. She exhaled sharply, like she'd been slapped. It was just a mistake. No, I said, looking her dead in the eye. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, dropping your phone in the toilet. What you did was a choice, repeated, deliberate. She looked down. I walked to the table, placed my coffee beside her untouched glass of water from the night before. You can stay at a hotel or at Nate's. I don't care. But this house? It's mine until the court says otherwise. And what about my things? She asked quietly. You can come back with someone. Supervised. I'll arrange a time. I'm not a criminal, she muttered. No, I said, walking toward the hallway. But you sure as hell acted like one, hiding, lying, sneaking around like a teenager with zero self-respect. Her voice broke behind me. I didn't mean to hurt you. I stopped at the doorway, looked over my shoulder. Yeah, I said, but you did. And now I'm done being the guy waiting for the signal to come back. You're offline. Permanently." She didn't respond. A few minutes later, the door closed behind her. No slamming, no final words, just a quiet click, like logging out. The divorce went through quietly. No courtroom screaming, no teary final pleas. She didn't contest anything, probably too proud to fight for what she'd already mentally abandoned months ago. She moved in with him eventually. Nate. I only know because mutual friends mentioned it, not because she ever said a word. Apparently, they look happy together on social media. Gym selfies, matching brunches, sunset photos with dumb captions like, "Finally found my person." Cute. I didn't reply to any of it. Didn't block her. Didn't stalk. Just disconnected. I kept the house, sold the furniture, repainted the walls, got a new couch, smaller but more comfortable. Like the space itself finally fit me, not us. At first, I was numb. You don't just bounce back after betrayal. You bleed out, slow and quiet. You sit with the ghost of the person you used to be. You unlearn the habits of checking your phone, waiting for someone to text you that they're on their way home, when in truth, they were never coming back. But eventually, the silence became peace. I started going to the gym again, picked up a guitar I hadn't touched in years, had real conversations with people, not about what went wrong, but about what could be better. And the best part? One night, a friend from work invited me over. Small group, casual drinks. His wife brought along a friend, warm eyes, sharp wit, the kind of laugh that didn't sound rehearsed. At some point, someone brought up dating horror stories, and I shrugged and said, "Yeah, my ex was like Wi-Fi, great connection with others. At home, it was all overload and no signal." People laughed, but this time, I laughed too, because now I've got a stronger signal, and no one else is leeching off the bandwidth.